We're a little late.
Couple minutes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. There's nobody showing here.
This is the Abhinivesha Ashram
This
Sunday
is
morning
This is
show.
Sunday. This is the Sunday morning
Show.
gig, whatever.
Satsang.
And we're supposed to talk today about fear. We wanted to talk about fear. And type in the box. We don't see, sometimes it doesn't show us your name who's with us unless you type something in the box. Then it tells us who's here. But you're showing up. We're seeing a few of you show, but nobody's
There
in.
it is.
Sri Ram. Hi, Sri Ram. Good morning. And so we're sitting here. Rojo is here, and Jeff is here visiting.
Hi, Janan.
Hi, Janan.
Good morning.
Good morning. And today is also a
Very special day.
special day. I was going to say a special, but I thought special
It is special.
or noteworthy, unique, noteworthy day because today is November 13th, 2016, just in case you forgot the year.
What is it about the 13th, Samadi?
It's a lucky number,
Ah,
lucky 13.
that's it?
Yeah, I don't, maybe so. But it's just hard to believe, it's hard to say, actually. But there was a little ha-ha face. That was a ha-ha.
I think so.
It was 20 years ago today, hard to believe, that Swami Rama left the body. And boy, what a day and event that was. At the time, I was living in his Rishikesh. Namaste, Shri Ram. I was living in his Rishikesh, India ashram, and the ashram manager came and tapped on my door. I opened the door. I was sitting at meditation time, and he. What was that?
That's a folded hand and hello from Raj.
Oh, there's a hello and hands from Raj. Hi, Raj. But anyway, he came, tapped on the door, and said Swamiji has left. And then a few days later, the people who know how to put all this stuff together put together a big event. There were, I don't know, a couple thousand people, I think, probably went in a long procession, put the body in a truck, and we all drove over to Haridwar and built a big pile. Hi, Debbie and John. And Bert.
Bert.
Do I know Bert?
That's John's dad.
Oh, yes, of course. Hello, Bert. Hi, Susan Louter. Anyway, there was a huge pile of sandalwood logs. I don't know where they got all this pile, a big pile of sandalwood logs. And we burned him. It was the first time I had ever witnessed a cremation like that. Of course, in America, cremations are done in an oven with gas or electricity or something.
Nellie and Susan and Ro have joined.
Hello, Nellie and Sue?
Susan.
Well, I already said Susan? Susan Louder.
Yeah.
I already said hello, Susan. Hello, Susan. Hi, Ro. Or did we say Ro? Anyway, it was an incredible experience. And
was that the same day or was it a few days later?
No, it was several days. It was, I don't remember exactly how days. He left at a little after 11 o'clock in the evening,
so it's, of course, not
and then the body was laid out there all day long. So he left, and the next day the body was laid out there. So I guess it was the day after that. It must have been the day after that, so it was 2 days later.
And the bandara then?
The body was burned. The bandara was about 2 weeks later.
Okay.
And I think they fed everybody. I think there were probably, I don't know what the numbers were, roughly 5,000 people came.
Hi, Matthias.
Hello, Matthias. Probably 500 or 1,000 swamis came, and it was the whole thing was just unbelievable. And that was 20 years ago now. So, just sort of...
Hi, Ranka.
Hi, Aranka. Anyway...
And all the other people we don't see.
And all the other people. We had...
If I may say so, I don't know.
You may say anything.
Okay, thank you. Is that, of course, I mean, for me, the honor, the gratitude towards tradition and the living, and he's a Vediko, and don't worship the boat, and all that. But it also brings it very personal, because one day, you know, we're gonna say, wow, it's been 20 years ago that Swamiji left the body.
You may not live that long.
Good. I mean that.
You know.
Well, because he says he's promised me.
If I hit 100,
yeah, he promised me
I've
that he will
still
become
got
100.
30 years left to go. Over
Yeah.
30 years.
Because he said, I'll become 100 just so to see this body turn 65. And so if that indeed happens, then, well, hello, I think I can live up to a 92. So
Yeah, yeah.
So
you're going to be old and crotchety.
Remember the
I can
day.
remember
Remember
20
the
years
day.
ago.
But I mean, it's just, in that sense, it is something to just honor the fact, like, wow, we still have a living, what is it? There's
Person.
something frozen. Living person.
Person.
Yeah, that is guiding
You
us.
know, we live in bodies. We are samskaras and all
Yes.
that, and we live in bodies. And as living in bodies and having personalities, life ought to be fun.
Yes.
And so we love one another and care
Hi,
for one another.
Sarah's here.
There
Fun.
is Sarah.
Sarah,
Hi,
we do this
Sarah.
every week. Cool.
And so here we are. We got little smiley faces.
This day is
So it's kind of
multiple
special.
things.
It's a
Yeah.
bittersweet kind of thing.
One
you
day
know.
we'll celebrate it, but now we're celebrating too. It's a celebration of the
or
ongoing lineage.
by then you might decide I'm a bad guy and you might not even want to hear my name.
It could be
Not
possible.
likely. Not likely.
I mean,
You know.
oh, Swamiji, that's never going to happen.
Anyway,
Yes.
20 years ago. It's funny how time is, because it's, hello Ashish. It seems both like yesterday and it seems like an eternity ago. Of course, time is always fascinating, isn't it, to live in the world of
And
time.
B is here as well. Betty, B.
Hi,
AKB.
Betty.
I'm glad that she
Oh,
said that.
B. Oh, thank you for telling us that Betty is
Betty,
Beatrice. I never knew that.
Now we know.
Now we know. Now you've let the secret. Now
Now
the
the monkey
monkey's out of
comes
the
out of the
sleeve. That's a Dutch thing, Ma has told me, that they say the monkey has come out of the sleeve. What's the
Been
one we
hidden,
use a lot?
Cat's out of the bag.
The cat's out of the bag. I don't know where that comes from. Why would you put a cat in a bag in the first place?
I know why you
Well,
put a monkey in your sleeve.
If you're trying to sell a piglet to somebody, you might put a cat in the bag so it looks like there's something living in there. And then after you sell it, you run away, and the person's left with a cat and not a piglet. It
Oh,
was like in the Middle Ages, some way of tricking people.
wow. The cat's out, but
And then you open the bag.
But so there was a big market for buying pigs.
Well,
Yeah.
and other things like it. Maybe a chicken, maybe something else.
And all you got was a cat. This
You got
sounds
cheated on.
this sounds pretty tragic, doesn't it?
Yeah. The monkey is that you're hitting a monkey in your sleeve, and as you're these people.
I've never
doing-
bought a pig though. So I
So-
guess it's a thing of era, ERA.
Swamiji, what
Yes.
is the subject for this week?
Well, we were going to talk about kleshas, and then it sort of refined itself and turned into a conversation on fear.
Just zoom in to one of them.
Zoom into fear.
Fear. Yeah.
And fear is one of the kleshas. I hope you're familiar with kleshas. The word klesha or kleshas is very, 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 very much right at the heart of yoga. Here, yoga meaning traditional yoga, not bending your butt and all that kind of stuff. So the kleshas, in terms
Bending
of,
your butt.
whatever you call that.
I'm just setting all kinds of weird pictures. Like bending your butt. How do you bend your butt? But Yeah, it's not that. Whatever it is, it's not that.
Whatever that is. Jeff is visiting us here, and he's sitting there looking at these people are strange.
Oh, we even got a wow. It's just interesting.
I got, oh look, there's
Yeah.
little wows showing up. Wows.
Wow.
What was that over? Pigs or clashes?
Probably over the butt bending.
Oh, it was over the butt bending. Yeah, well, you know. Anyway, we're talking about the old-fashioned yoga. The old-fashioned yoga.
Traditional.
So Patanjali, the lineage known as Patanjali, outlines yoga, traditional yoga, in the Yoga Sutras. 196 sutras outlining yoga. Well, this word klesha is it's in 4 chapters, as most of you know. It's introduced in chapter 1 in the 5th klesha. It says, Vrateya Panchateya Kleshta Ekleshta. The thought fluctuations in the mind field are of 5 categories or types, and they are either kleshta or ekleshta. That's where that principle is introduced. I don't know what language I'm speaking this morning, but anyway. There's Gurvinder. Hi,
That
Gurvinder.
just came out automatistic.
Automatistic. She talks like that a lot. She takes English words and Dutchifies them, and they come out a little funny.
It's automatic and autistic. Automatistic.
I don't know where we got her. Anyway, so
yoga nidra session.
klesha is introduced there. Vrateya, Panchateya, Kleshta, Ekleshta, 5 kinds of these things, and they're either kleshta or ekleshta. And then this is in chapter 1 of Yoga Sutras, and then Patanjali introduces the actual types of the 5 kleshas right near the beginning of chapter 2. And basically, briefly, the 5 kleshas are avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha. And the principle is, a simple metaphor that I know of, is if we say the wave that is in the ocean, the wave forgot that it was ocean. And then it can think of itself as an individual wave rolling around in the ocean. And so there's 2 parts in that sentence that I just said, the wave forgot it was the ocean. There is an individual wave who did a thing called forgot. But what the yogis explain to us is that the principle is, it's not that in grammar, in the sentence structure, I say the wave forgot. So the first part is the existence of an individual wave, and then the verb called forgot. But it actually occurs the other way around. First there is forgetting. First there is a forgetting, which is called avidya, and once the forgetting starts to occur, then arises the awareness of being an individual.
The
Okay,
ocean
that's the
appears
principle.
to forget itself.
Yeah, the ocean, all of a sudden, this universal process, also known as Maya, which Maya is universal, avidya is individual, is what happens to each of us as an individual. So first there is forgetting process. So this is why in grammar it's hard to say, because our sentence structure goes in the other order. So first there is forgetting of being Atman or Brahman or Purusha or Shakti or Shiva or Christ
Love.
consciousness or love
We spoke about
or
that.
Krishna consciousness or many ways of describing it. First there is forgetting of that true nature, and then emerges an individuation. And then the next one, the third of these kleshas, is raga. The 4th one is dvesha. Raga and dvesha basically mean attraction and aversion. They're both forms of attachment. If I like you, I can become attached to it. It's like, wow, what a great knee this is. I'm really attached. I like this knee. This is a wonderful knee, you see. Or if I think, ooh, bad knee, that's aversion. So both of them are attachment. I can be attached to the knee this way, or I can be attached to it. Look what happens when you find some person who you find irritating.
A lot lot of energy.
There's a
pushing and
lot of that going around this week in the world, and particularly in the United States, regardless of which side of that fight you're on. There's a lot of this aversion going on. And as our mind field pushes against a knee or another person or a country or a principle or anything, a food that you, Karela.
You have to make contact.
You put energy into pushing something away. So it's a form of attachment.
Yes.
And the part that says I like, that's a form of attachment. So this is attachment and this is attachment. They're both attachment. But this one is attraction and this one is aversion. Or simply stated, there's pulling towards me, there's pulling and there's pushing. This is attachment and this is attachment, but this is raga and this is dvesha.
And the more we do that, the more we
And then
separate ourselves from
and
the rest of
once
ocean.
the forgetting has occurred and the wave is an individual, now there's an individual me, and then I take on what virtually countless versions of this and this. Let's just say this and this. Once I do a lot of these, I don't know, 10,000, a million, 27 trillion, I have no idea how many there are. Once we do a Google or a Googleplex, many of both of these, then that defines me.
Yeah, there's a nice constellation.
She says, I'm Dutch. I say, I'm American. And so
Ew, American.
Ew. Oh,
How can
Dutchie.
they choose this?
You know.
They're crazy. All Americans are great because we also generalize in our opinions.
Yeah, the Dutchies think that Americans are crazy. There's kind of some truth in that the Dutchies think that. And they're kind of right. Anyway, so we have the forgetting process called avidya. Then arises an individuation called asmita. Then there's a bunch of ragas and a bunch of dveshas, and all of those together define something that we commonly call me. And then the fifth klesha is Abhinivesha, which is a combination of clinging to that totality that identifies me, and the root of that is fear. Now, this does not mean like clinical paranoia fear that we're walking around trembling, but it means we hold on to that. We don't want to lose it. We don't want to lose our identity. We don't want to lose our college degree, our professional identity. My, there's Kay. Hi, Kay, nice to see you. Anyway, we don't want to lose our identities, whatever they are, however they have occurred, in the natural sequence of living. Yeah, really, very scary, says Aranka. And so this is what Abhinivesha is about, and it's the fifth question, and that's what we wanted to...
And it can be pretty shocking that we think, okay, we like to have and keep the things that we want, but that we're afraid of losing that which we don't like.
And mostly we don't know this. Mostly we don't know it. We're living our lives and we say, I'm not afraid of things. I'm pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and on medications and all that. I'm not really scared. I'm not looking over my shoulder for the bad guys constantly.
Yeah.
But here's an example. This is and I hope this doesn't happen, you know. But if all of a sudden the plaster on the ceiling over our heads started falling down, we felt a little rumble. We don't get earthquakes here. We get hurricanes, but we don't get earthquakes. If all of a sudden things started moving here and the plaster on the ceiling started to fall down, we sitting right here, we might do something like this. We might go, right?
Yeah.
This is called
kicks in.
the self-preservation kicks in.
Yeah.
And this is Abhinivesha. It doesn't mean that we're, you know, crawling under the couch scared for our lives, but what happens is we have an attachment. I'm making up a story here. We have a raga, an attachment an attraction, an attachment that we're just not really mindful of right now as we're sitting here. We're not aware of it. So there's a little bit of shock factor. And that expectation is that we're going to be able to sit here this morning and have this conversation, and the building's not going to fall down. And all of a sudden, if it starts to come down, there's a reaction to it. And we all know this. You know, someone we know in our broader circle of people posted a picture the other day, had an automobile accident, and the whole front of the car was just all smashed in.
Correct.
And she said everybody's okay, nobody was hurt. But what must have been the physiology, the central nervous system, the whole body reaction at the moment of the impact of that car? You're driving the car and all of a sudden, we don't know the details of what happened, but you're driving your car and all of a sudden, bang! What happens? There's this shock factor that,
New Zealand had a 7.8 earthquake.
New Zealand had a 7.8
my. Anyone checked on
earthquake.
Jivitish?
Yeah, is Jivitish with us?
He's okay?
And no, we all do that. As soon as we
he's only,
mine automatically goes to Jivitish and
because
says,
he's related to me, nobody else in New Zealand. So it's a good.
yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. Yeah, he's related to me. He's my Jivitish.
Yeah, our Jivitish.
He's our Jivitish. So to speak, playfully said, to hell with all the rest of the New Zealanders.
Jivitish.
We care about Jivitish. Yeah. We have Jivitish like this, and it's not that we're opposed to all the other New Zealanders, but there's kind of a neutrality. There's no clash. There's just nothing.
No attachment. No.
So there's a thing going with that. And then we realize that we hold Jivitish as being part of our circle community of people, and we want Jivitish to stay okay.
Yeah.
And the natural human resistance to an earthquake in New Zealand has to do with Abhinivesha. And the reason we're trying to play with examples, Jivitish, that's a good example, Jivitish and the car, is that we're all living in this. This is what goes on in this world in which we live out here.
And it's so minute that we just don't recognize it.
Yeah, we don't recognize it. But it's part of the total constellation of our perception of reality. I think it's a little bit like the old metaphor of building a house of cards. You take a deck of cards and you build a little house of cards. And our house of cards is very, very delicate. And it's like we're living like, don't anybody blow my house of cards down. And again, let me reiterate, we're not talking about paranoid sort of mental health, psychological diagnosis.
See for what it is.
Maribel says, don't we need this fear to stay alive and live what we have to live in order to grow? It's an intriguing point you're making. It's a very, very intriguing point you're making. The way the yogi looks at this says, what we're really trying to do is awaken to this, whatever you call it, Atman or Purusha or self or soul and all those kind of things. If we can awaken to this, then we are knowing that aspect of ourselves which was never born and cannot die and has no fear whatsoever because it has no characteristics. But first what had to happen is we had to forget that we are Atman. And that's the forgetting that allows there to be an individual called wave, and then we start taking on attractions and aversions and identities. These are stored as what are called samskaras in the field of the latent unconscious, which has been called chitta. It's called karma shaya, the field of karmas, and so it all resides here. And this, in yogic language, jiva or jivatman is a combination of this, the atman, the pure consciousness that was never born and never dies. It's a combination of this along with my samskaras. And when you put these two together, this is called jivatman, or the short version of that is simply jiva. So often you'll see the word jiva, but the word jiva alone means this and this combined. And this unit defines me. And then I can emerge outward here into the active unconscious. I'm laying in bed having dreams. And in the dream, I am a me, and there's an Ashish, and there's a Nicholas, and there's a Maribel, and a Matri, and everybody else. So I'm an individual with characteristics having a dream. Or I move out a little bit further, I have a conscious mind, I'm a physically breathing person, I have lungs and a diaphragm, and I have a physical body, and I do actions in the world, and I have senses that bring stuff in. And so when you talk about Maribel, I'm not picking on your words. Your words are perfect. You say, don't we, which means a collection of I. It means really I. Do I need this fear to stay alive so that I can live in order to grow? In some sense, it's the hard part of the word is have to. The choice of words was have to. It's not that you have to, but it just comes along with the deal. This is the way reality operates. We do avidya. We have asmita, we have ragas, we have deveshas, and then we have the abhinivesha. And all of that together allows me to be this total person. And it's not a condition of have to. It's not about have to. It's just the way that it's built in. And if you're holding it in that way, then okay, in choice of words, we can say, okay, yeah, you have to. But see, here's the hook of the thing. And you know this because yogis have been telling us throughout human history who have come to awaken to this, that none of this is ultimately who you are. And what we're attempting to do is awaken to this. So we are trying to recede inward in our meditations and contemplations and devotions and all of the yogic practices that we do. What we're attempting to do is to recede back inward to realize this, standing alone. This is why the term self-realization is used, not self-attainment. If I'm a person out here, if I'm a totality of this person, I can go to the university and I can go get a PhD, a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD in, I don't know, biology. And now I can say, I have learned about biology. Or I can go become a PhD in computer science, and now I say, okay, I'm an IT geek. Well, the one who is that is the totality. And this is the way we grow. And again, I want to get back here. I want to see Maribel's word because it's so perfect. In order to grow. Who is doing growing? This totality of me, yes, is growing out here in the world. And so the five kleshas just come along for the ride. They're just built in. This is how reality operates, and this is how we as human beings operate. But in terms of what the yogis are telling us, what we really want to do is to sit down on our butt and do a meditation, go through the body, recede from breath, recede from conscious mind, recede from unconscious mind, including going beyond our samskaras, and have self-realization, awaken to the realization of being this. And there is no fear, there's no aversion, there's no attraction, there's no I-ness, there's no asmita, and there's no avidya. That's the principle. So I hope that helped.
When you said that it's, it's just part of the deal, what that made me remember is that as we play through avidya and asmita as an appearing individual, we have the four primitive fountains.
Yes.
And so sleep, food, sex, and self-preservation. And
they all come with they just come with the territory.
They come with the territory, and we can't pretend, we can't do without them. We can't do without food or sleep or any of them. It's just part of the job. We balance them.
We as a being out here cannot do without them.
Yes, of course.
But we as Atman is beyond that.
And so
this is the paradox of every conversation that we have about yogic principles. It just, now something else I was going to say in that, and it just got bumped. It just went away. I just lost my train. You just took me off the train. Anyway.
What else is people saying?
Oh, Nicholas is having to leave. Most of my actions are driven by Abhinivesha, attachment to people, things, money. I try to be aware of it, but then back to the grooves of mind. Yes, Ashish, that's the way we operate. That's the way we operate, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not that it's wrong. Coming out into human bodies and coming out into personalities and traits and families and relationships, this is not a bad thing. It's, as we were saying before, it's built in, so it's natural. But at the same time, and I know that you already know this, it's the longing coming from deep inside of you that says something like, there's something more. there's something more. We read some books, we listen to some talks or something like that. Somebody snoops in, and after our conversation today, somebody snoops in and listens in on what we're doing right now, and it touches somebody and says, wow, you know, I think it's true. It's as if I have fallen asleep into this crazy world out here, and I want to wake up. I want to know this. And so sometimes some of us, this happens in early childhood. Some of us, we've been doing it in a last life, and we come here and we wake up and say, where the hell am I? How did I get here? Something like that, right? Sounds familiar, Jeff? Yeah. And some of us, it's in teen years, some of it's later in life, but it happens. And what we're doing is, me out here as a physical person who breathes and thinks that I, as a physical person, have a mind, does not realize that the physical body has manifested outward from this. So it comes, we move outward, we manifest outward, and then we veil with avidya and maya. We just keep moving out every time we move outward. So in some sense, every morning when we get out of bed, when we're in deep sleep, we've receded inward. This isn't really doing anything too much right now. The breathing is slight. The conscious mind is being quiet. We're not dreaming. We're laying there in dreamless deep sleep. We're laying in bed. And then notice what happens. Something starts to stir. The mind starts to switch on. It's as if there's a little computer control word. I know we're not a computer, but somebody inside, the little man inside, starts switching on the switches. Let's turn on the lights again. And the mind switches on. And the senses, the smelling, the tasting, the seeing, the touching, and the hearing were not being operated because I was in deep sleep. And they're all switching on, and I'm moving outward. And as we move outward, we veil avidya, or leave behind that which we're leaving. So the best classic example, we all know this already. When you're laying in bed and you're having a dream and you start to wake up, for just a moment sometimes you can remember the dream, but then a moment later you lost the dream. What happened? You moved outward, and as you moved outward you put a curtain behind it, a veil behind it that's called avidya. And you moved out here, and then you said, now this is me. And your feet get out of the bed, and you put your feet on the ground, and you get up and you say, hey, good morning. And we either say, oh, it's a beautiful day, or we say, oh, shit, it's another day.
Welcome to waking state.
Thus, kleshas are part of the human experience. Yes, 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 Maribel, perfectly stated. It's part of the human experience. And to add to what you just said, it's part of the human experience. There's a way of saying we have three aspects ourselves. It's a way of talking about the three gunas of sattva, rajas, and tamas. There's three aspects of our being, and this is just a choice of words to try to touch on what you just said. I am human, I am animal, and I am divine. It's just a choice of words. So it's part of the human experience. That meaning out here, I have a human body and a brain and all of the body parts that I have, and I have a mind that's operating, and part of my mind is conscious, and part of it I'm not too aware of it. You know, it's not in my mind. Right now, every one of us who has some sort of work that you do in the world, and people during the week with whom you interact on your job or whatever, until I just said job, you were not thinking about those people. Where were they? They were in the latent, they were in the unconscious part of your mind. As soon as I say job, all of a sudden you go click and you remember that. So we all have conscious, we all have a body, we all breathe, we all do actions, we all have senses, we all have conscious mind, we all have an unconscious, and we have this. And so this is what, in that triad that I just said, this is called the divine. And the animal simply means those primitive urges in there that comes from every creature, the biggest of which is self-preservation. Hi, Alexei. And so once we are an individual and we have taken on a bunch of these and a bunch of these, once we've done this, and then we've got this natural built-in klesha called fear, then we're out here in the world. And there's a me and there's a you.
And then we can play human being.
We can play. And sometimes we forget that it's a game.
Yeah.
and different.
It's a role.
It's a role. Different philosophies, different psychologies, different religions, different cultures have different views on these. In yogic principles, if you look at it through the eyes of intellectual jhana yoga, studying like that, you can say there are some people around that say this is how we end up with men. Practice is an opinion, I own it. This is how we can end up with men practitioners who are saying that women are bad, which is of course ridiculous. It's not that women are bad, it's that we have it built into us that we want to have sex with them. You know, go back to teenage years and what little boy did not want to, you know, have something going on with the pretty girls. It's just built in. It's just built into nature. And so some will say this is good and this is bad.
It just is.
Yogis mostly say it's pain and pleasure. It's useful and not useful. We're in the world of duality. And once we have this, once we've receded back here, we don't have any of those dualities. But one of the philosophical approaches to this that is extremely neat in this way is Tantra. Because Tantra says, of course it's moving out there, and yes, it's Maya and it's avidya. Maya is illusion. It's not seeing things reality. It's not reality and all like that. But Shakti says, well, it all is manifesting outward so that I can be a me out here and you can be a you out here. It's manifesting outward. And yes, it's Maya, and yes, it's avidya, but isn't it beautiful? Isn't it just absolutely incredible? And then if we see that well, we can see even the person over there who I think of as my enemy. I can see, isn't there a beautiful manifestation there? We look out and we see a field of flowers.
Then they become ripples of love.
Yeah, you see the flowers and you see the beauty. We were having weeds growing in the garden out here. A couple weeks ago, you know what Ma Tree started doing? We had some pots in there that the flowers had died. She went around, listen to this, you're going to like this. She went around, she started pulling some of the weeds out of the yard and planting them in the flower pots. And she said she decided she was going to start to look at the weeds as being beautiful. And so she took I don't know how the hell we all know which are weeds and which are pretty, but we have some, it's built in, we have some sense of this. So she took the weeds and put them in the pot.
Yeah.
I watched her do that. It was really neat. And so this I don't know that she was thinking it like this, but this is a tantric view on exactly the same thing that's said in Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, every one of the so-called different yogas. Everybody has a way of looking at how the unity, the oneness, manifests out in multiplicity.
Reminds me of Swami Rama with all his cactuses. He says, I take care of all the children of the divine.
Yeah, he liked cactuses. He liked growing cactus.
In the ashram in India, there are many. Still
And
not
he
as much as there were.
and he would say that the cactus is a symbol of the Swami, not meaning the person wearing, funny colored clothes, but meaning the way Arjuna is in the Bhagavad Gita. He actually became a renunciate ultimately because he knew I as Arjuna am not the doer. This stuff's just going on, and so that's a form of renunciation.
Yeah. So you don't water the cactus too much.
And
you
so
don't give it too much attention.
that's why the symbol of the cactus is for the renunciate, whether it's the person living renunciation right in the middle of life with family and jobs and all that stuff, or whether one's living as a renunciate, as a swami or a lama or some kind of monk living in the cave in the Himalayas or in a monastery. It doesn't matter. The two forms of renunciation are essentially the same. Just look.
And that's what I thought with the weeds, that they're growing anyway.
This is why I brought that up.
We don't give them much water, but we give them.
And so they're like cactus,
they just grow.
The things we have in the pots that look like flowers, you have to go out there with a hose and water them. The weeds, they just grow.
Yeah.
They grow so well that you have to go get rid of them.
Yeah.
Anyway. I was also remembering, some of you may know this story. I think you'll enjoy it if you don't, or if you do, you'll enjoy being reminded of this. Those many years ago when our Swami Rama was young and the boss, his teacher, wanted him to leave India and go to the West and teach us foolish people. And he said to the boss, I say lovingly the boss, he said to the boss, well, what do you want me to teach these people? Do you want me to teach them about our religions? And the boss said to him, no, you foolish boy. First, teach them about fear. Second, teach them about self-realization.
It's a very fitting
But the
subject.
primary first thing to teach the people about is fear and how fear operates. That's actually what triggered me to think last week. We said, what are we going to talk about? Let's talk about klesha. And then during the week, it sort of switched, it refined itself to let's talk about fear. Well, it was in the spirit of that. Why do we need to know about fear? Because most of us are walking around, we may have a few known fears, but most of us are walking around saying, no, I don't have many fears. Well, we're living in it constantly. It's just that it's not big enough that it goes over a threshold that gives us a paranoid, diagnosis. We're not crazy people. We're just normal. And we have the expectation that the ceiling's going to stay in place. We have the expectation, like the friend whose car just got crashed, that we saw the picture on the Facebook. We think that our car is going to make it from here to the grocery store. We have these expectations about how reality is going to operate. I think she's just always going to be nice. The other day, it doesn't matter what it was. It's completely I'm not going to say the details don't matter because this is just all of us. I'm just speaking from my life. This is as me as a totality called this. No. It had to do with how to do something with chocolate. And she had one idea and I had another idea, and this was not a big deal. There was just a flash. It was like a flash of fire, and all of a sudden this fire came out of her.
Everything has to be done his way. I can't do anything my way.
That captures the spirit of it. It just captures it like that. Well, it's no big deal. It's just klesha. It's just klesha. And this is the way we operate. And why did the klesha come out like this? Was she afraid? Was she sitting there in the kitchen shaking like this in terror? Oh, no. No, that's not it. There's an expectation that I'm going to sit here in the kitchen, I'm doing this with my chocolate, and the expectation is, the expectation is that I'm going to be not disturbed by him because he's out there doing something else.
My way.
Reasonable expect, and she's not even sitting there consciously thinking my way.
No.
It's just all of a sudden this guy walks in the kitchen door and says something to me about something, and so what is the root of that? One of the roots of that is Abhinivesha, the fifth klesha. What is it that was prior to the Abhinivesha, the fear of the loss of expectation? Was the expectation itself, which is defined by the ragas and the deveshas. Yeah. This is natural. It's just part of being a human being.
As long as there's samskaras, it's just bound to happen that these.
Yeah, that's right. Because these are samskaras, and they are memories that are colored. Klesha, they are colored with it. They're colored with this, or they're colored with I-ness, with my ego, or they are colored, klesha, with avidya. The wave has forgotten, so that forgetting process is there. So all of those five work together that ended up resulting in her going, Yeah. So what's the big deal? Did she and I have this big fight over it? And no, did she run off and storm off and say, well, you're an asshole,
No, in 5 seconds I saw it.
It flashes and there it is, and you laugh over it. This is just how it works.
Unexpected fear happened to me.
Car almost ran me over. I could let this go. Fear of dying regards my identity in a different manner. Yes. And so that identity is the fear of loss of your physical body by getting hit with a car. It's a natural thing. When we have something like that, it's relatively easy to see it as fear. But we have to look a little closer to see the thing in the kitchen with chocolate as fear.
Yeah.
But notice the subtlety. This is the thing we're trying to talk about. And so why did the boss tell Swami Rama, tell these foolish people first about fear, then tell them about self-realization?
All over.
It's the principle that we read a book, we hear a talk, and we say, okay, I want to become enlightened. I want to know this. And it seems to be built into all of us that somehow I, this composite called me, thinks that I am going to attain something called Atman. I'm going to possess it. In the same way I can possess, I'm going to get a pencil. Here is my pencil, and I can scribble with it. I'm going to attain a pencil. I'm going to pick up my book like that. We think that we can do that with Atman. It's natural that we think that way, but we cannot do that. You cannot gain. You can gain a college degree, but you cannot gain Atman. All you can do is set aside the not me. What's not me, set it aside. What's not me, set it aside. And this is the process we're attempting to go beyond or reverse the avidya. Patanjali defines yoga as yogas chitta vritti nirodha. What is nirodha? Yoga is defined as the nirodha of all the chitta vrittis, of all of the kleshas. If I set aside, when you sit for meditation, what is it you're doing with the external world? When you come into your room and you sit on your cushion, you're leaving the world out there. You're receding inward. Then you're aware of your body. What do you do with your body? If you sit still for meditation, you succeed in really being still. You so to speak, forget. You recede inward. You forget you have a body. I was gonna, that'll work. And so, that one works better. I sort of forget that I have a body. I forget the world out here. I leave it behind. I'm not, remember, this is just a symbol. I'm not blocking it out. I'm not blocking the world. I'm just receding my awareness inward, and I forget that there's a world out there. And then I forget I have actions and senses. I forget that I have a body. And note that the word forget is not perfect. It's a clumsy word. But my attention is receding inward. And you know that this happens when you're sitting for meditation, and then you become aware of and absorbed in your breath, and your om is coming and going, your so and your hum is coming and going. And then sometimes you flinch like this, and suddenly, if you look back, you'll realize, for just a moment, I forgot I had a body. We all have these experiences, and what's happening is we are receding inward. And then we gradually learn how to allow, not force, the conscious mind to become quiet. That thing which is commonly called monkey mind. If you try to directly get it to stop, it seems to never work. But if you do this systematically, and you allow your body to be very, very still, and you get your breath to be very, very smooth, and eliminate the pause between breaths, and you do all that, then what happens is the conscious mind naturally becomes quiet. We can do that for months or years and think, wow, I'm a great meditator. I've got this mastered. I'm writing books. I'm doing seminars and workshops. And then all of a sudden you come to a point where you feel like you're going backwards. You know, I was doing this for years, and all of a sudden now I'm getting this load of unconscious materials coming forward. And what's happening is we're encountering all of this unconscious. We're not attempting to do past life regression, but we are encountering the effect of all of my latent samskaras. And I'm running into it. Gradually we learn to do non-attachment, vairagya with that. And then gradually we recede inward to the point that the only thing left is this. And this is the realization. Hi, Scott. This is the realization, the self-realization of the self. And this then, Patanjali then says, Tada drastu svarupayavasanam. Tada means simply then. The drastu, it's a beautiful choice of words. It says the seer. It's a way of avoiding defining it as Atman or Purusha. That's what he's referring to. But he artfully, beautifully ignores saying that by that's not giving it a label so we can have philosophical debates over what it is. It basically says when you set aside everything who you discover that in fact you are not, what's left is who you are. Tada drastu, then the seer, svarupe avasanam. Svarupe, rupa means form. Sva means in its own form. Then the seer rests in its own true form. And the true form of this is formless. So there's no object on which I am meditating here. It's just pure consciousness, and that's called self-realization.
And every step along the way, when it goes a little more receding, then there's logical that there's fear.
There's fear
because a little bit more let go.
Because we're gaining more insight is coming, and it's like scary. So you're doing meditation, all of a sudden, where is this coming from? And it can be a jolt, and you come back out of your meditation. Anyway.
And then on top of that, when there's an experience of fear, we even identify with that. So even fear itself as an emotion, as a feeling, becomes part of our constellation, because I am fearful, I am afraid. Because in the practice, then gradually even those movements come up.
Fear, look, there's a bear in the living room. Anxiety, what if there is a bear in the living room?
There's a difference between the two words. In Dutch, we don't have two words. Fear and anxiety both translate to the same word. So I remember asking
in terms of what we're talking about, klesha here, I don't know if that was Debbie or John saying, but probably the two of them sitting there. But in terms of the klesha, the way we're talking about the klesha here of what's stored in the latent unconscious, it's essentially the same, because the klesha is there, the coloring is still there, whether there's literally a bear in the living room or it's the thought that what if there's a bear, because the samskara comes forward, and it's there. And so it's essentially not different. Now, I'm no fool. I am a fool, but I'm not a total, complete fool, like an idiot. So I do know the difference of all of a sudden if a bear walked in the front door of the ashram. I know that would be different than just, I acknowledge that.
And not having your chocolate.
Yeah, and not having your chocolate.
Because you're afraid that when you walk over to the wrap, if there's
But when the
left.
big bear called John Hayes walks in the front door and I see him coming, I don't jump back out of fear. I get up and give him a hug. There's the principle. It's colored with klesha. The bear called John Hayes is like this. The bear called Grizzly is like this, But they're both colored. They're both klesha. And both of those kinds of bears, if I allow it to happen, define me as a personality in person.
Hi, Mir.
Hi, Mir. Mir came.
Yeah.
So was there something else that we skipped there?
No, I don't think so.
I think we're kind of. Maribel said back here, wow, I think I understand now.
Yeah, that was...
That's I like that comment, Maribel. And that principle that you just said there, wow, I think I understand now. This is the reason that Swami Rama's boss told him first teach them about fear. We need to have this kind of conversation over and over and over again so that Maribel can have the insight that you just type here. Wow, I think I understand now. And so then tomorrow, when you have forgotten this, and all of a sudden you, as a composite Maribel out in the world, react to something, there's a possibility that tomorrow all of a sudden it'll happen, like Matri in the kitchen with chocolate, and you'll go, wow, what was that? And you'll go, oops. I like the word oops. You go, oops, oh, I can say that had something was going on in my unconscious mind that had something to do with this klesha business. Yeah. And you may not know exactly what it is. We're not all having to get on the psychiatrist's couch and psychoanalyze every little tidbit of our makeup. That's not what we're talking about. Yeah, look at that. Thank you, Machias. I remember around 2 years ago, once I tried to sit down to meditate, I started to feel great fear. I jumped up and ran out of the room. I love it. Thank you. That's the image. It's the perfect image of what we're talking about. And so if it happens tonight or after this conversation and you go sit there and it happens now, my hope would be that what would happen is
it's just fear.
You may have the jump. See, the jump, you said I jumped up and ran out of the room. If it happens an hour from now, you may jump. There's a natural reaction when a bear walks in the room. or the car is coming at you, or the person walks into the kitchen and makes a comment about chocolate. There's a natural reaction, and the word jump captures that nicely. We respond. Why? Because the klesha, the coloring of these samskaras is extremely deep inside of it. And so it's on autopilot. It just boom happens, and what we experience in the body is the shock wave of this coming out, and we jump. It's not a bad thing. It just means, okay, there was a reaction. But if it happens to you an hour from now, probably what you will do is that will be there, but you won't jump, you won't run out of the room. You'll just sit there and you say, wow.
That was fear.
That was fear. Something just happened. The fact that I jumped, the mere fact that I jumped, tells me that something happened in my unconscious mind. I may not know what it was, but I can pause for a moment if I'm curious, and I can say, okay, what was that about? And the wisdom inside of me will tell me. It'll give me some answer, some response. And this is part of the process of purifying the mind. To go back to Patanjali in yoga terms, in the second rung of the 8 rungs of Ashtanga Yoga, there's 5 niyamas. The first one is purifying the mind and body. This is a part of purifying the mind and body. It has, particularly mind. It's observing that the body flinched or jumped, and then we're going to purify the mind by saying, what happened? How did this happen? And that's called svadhyaya, which is the 4th niyama, which is about self-study. It's about introspection. It's saying, I want to know these fears. I want to know how this thing is operating. What I really need to be studying books is a good thing to do, but you study the book so that you can study yourself. Ultimately, the things we want to study is ourselves. Yeah, also in dreams, sometimes we feel that we're falling down somewhere and we get shocked.
Because
it
also happens in the dream state.
Yeah, it also happens in the dream state. Yeah, there's those little shocks that happen.
Yeah.
And what do? To borrow that word again, we jump. There's some sort of deep unconscious jump.
Yeah.
Nellie, fear is not always jolting, but is stagnation. Isn't this correct? Well, this is part of our identity that we've built up of how do I normally react to a samskara awakening. Sometimes we jump and as much as said, run out the room. Sometimes we jump and we suppress it and we become stone-like. Look at the psychologists have mapped out many different kinds of defense mechanisms. I have, in my background experience, I have a few times taken a list of the psychologist's primary defense mechanisms and gone in with a group of people for a satsang and say, everybody look at this and please guess on there which one of these pathological defense mechanisms are you most personally aligned with. And if I can get people to do it without feeling like I'm psychoanalyzing them, you see that, wow, I have a habit of reacting this way. Some people have a normal personality reaction of moving out energetically and confronting. My own personal personality thing is to run away. That's my normal reaction, is to run away. So one person runs and faces the bear and goes, ah. Some of us have more of a reaction that says, get the hell away from the bear, go to the other room, something. And so this comes from exploring the way in which our personal unconscious has been manifested. And how did it become the way that it is? Through lifetimes of living and samskaras. It just becomes more and more embedded. What else do we do? Sorry, correct observation? I don't know what that means.
Is this the correct observation? So fear is not always jolting, but it's stagnating. Is this the correct observation? It was just typos.
Could be paralyzing.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, it's paralyzing. Yeah, but yes, and maybe I'm wanting to say, Nellie, yes, it is that. But note that stagnation. What I'm trying to suggest is that the stagnation you're talking about and the jolting where Matya said ran out the room. I'll jump over to the jump out the room. The run out of the room and the stagnation are essentially two different versions of the same thing. They are the the reaction to the jolt. The jolt occurs, and for one person, the jolt causes you to stagnate. For another person, to freeze, good word. For another person, the jolt of the samskara, of the klesha, causes you to run out the room. So it's because of our conditionings that the specific way that we may react is different. I just borrowed that word jolt because I kind of liked it, and we could choose a different word for it. But I know you're right on track with what you're saying, Nellie. So there is a primary something that is a spark or a jolt or a something, which is the awakening of the klesha, of the samskara. Looking into my fear and being more relaxed with it is helping me to understand my actions better and my habits, what is working and what's not. Very, very good, Sarah. Right, nail on the head. That's it. You just keep observing yourself. This is why self-observation. When we talk about self-observation and self-analysis in terms of the yogic perspective, listen carefully to this. This self-awareness is mostly the awareness of the not-self. And so we start by saying, I'm going to do self-awareness. We have created a self-awareness, a self-assessment form, which some of you have seen and we've gone through. But mostly it's not awareness becoming aware of who I am. It's becoming aware of who I am not, but that I incorrectly think that I am. And so it is that.
Because if we see fear as a natural thing, then even when it occurs, we gradually just get more okay with the fact.
Yeah, and all of this, that's why all of this process, sadhana, meditation, contemplation, all the things that we do, is a process. It's not something, it's not a one thing, here it is, bang. You live it, and I think everybody in this conversation knows this. You live it, and you just, so how often do you look at fears? You're just living in it, but it's not, again, it's not about paranoia. You just do what Sarah said. You notice, and you become more and more relaxed. And what you're calling relaxed, I will say, is vairagya. It's non-attachment. It allows us to relax because we're seeing more and more. We're seeing this is just the way that my mind operates. This mind operates in this kind of way, and it causes reactions out here through the central nervous system and the brain and the body and my arms and hands and legs. And so she reaches out and says something obnoxious to me, I hit her in the leg. See how that works?
That's how it works.
But anyway, first learn about fear, then learn about self-realization. That's the principle.
Yeah. Which, another word for that is free.
In other words, being free.
Free from fears.
Well, free from fears, and if we expand that, what it really means is free from coloring, free from klesha. How do you become free from these 5 kleshas? How do you do this nirodha business? You just keep practicing over and over and over, and gradually we get glimpses of that. We're doing something that Sarah called being more relaxed. And which means we're quieter and quieter and quieter. In Psalms of the Western Bible, the whole thing is summarized in there. It says in one sentence, be still and know that I am God. What's the whole thing? Be still. Be still at the level of relationships out here. Be still with the body. Be still with the breath, which doesn't mean that holding my breath. It means that it's smooth. Be still at the level of conscious mind. Learn to be still at the level of the unconscious mind, and then know. And then you declare, not I'm the boss of the universe version of God, but I am divine. In my true nature, I am divine, and I am one with God, or truth, or reality, or Brahman, or however you personally want to hold that notion. That's the principle. So we need to understand fear. And that we are loaded. We are just absolutely loaded with expectations and perspectives on how we think the world and reality is.
Now they may be a little fearful that this show is going to end.
Now this is going to end, and we know you're feeling fear. You're just terrified. You're just absolutely terrified. They're going to turn the thing off, and it's going to be over. But then in a few minutes it'll be there, and you can watch replay.
Yeah.
And then you'll feel better or something. Anyway,
It is very subtle indeed.
thank you all for posting these comments in here,
Yeah.
and it adds a richness to this. And it allows us to just sort of be on a roll and an attempt to share some stuff with you that is of value. That's what this is all about. And it truly, really, really does help when you put comments in there like this. So this is tremendously appreciated interaction, what you've done today. And
Flooded with thumbs. And
this was
hearts.
fun for me. Did you have
I
fun?
had fun too.
Rojo had fun, I think.
Yeah.
It's okay, Jeff?
Loved it.
Loved it, good.
Good.
And we got little hearts.
All
People, when you
over the
push those
place.
little thumbs up or those hearts or things, they just come bouncing across the screen. That looks like a Rojo doing that.
Yeah, and Anka.
And there's an Aranka doing
Nelly
that.
was doing it, Amir. And
What we see here, I don't know, on the playbacks, maybe you've seen this before, we see a little bubble come up on the iPad, and the little bubble is maybe, 2 millimeters across, something like that?
there's Sri Ram.
And there's Sri Ram. And then it turns into a heart or a thumbs up or whatever.
Matthias. And
Yeah,
Darren. Or I think it
you
was.
have a quicker eye than me at catching them.
There's profile. I mean, there's a lot of Rojos.
There's a lot of Rojos. She's sitting over there on her cell phone over
The
there.
other ones. Some drift by, we don't know.
Yes, some of them
I'll let
drift.
them have a chance to give you more.
So next week, same
Same
place,
time, next
same
week.
time.
We do this every Sunday.
every Sunday.
I don't know what the subject will be.
Maybe
We'll-
it's because it's not yet the Thanksgiving weekend. Gratitude or
Yeah,
whatever, something.
in the
We'll find out.
U.S., the weekend 24th is Thanksgiving
But
holiday.
that's not this coming weekend.
But
It's-
not everybody in the world. We're all over the world here, and so
I know, but being thankful is always in
yeah.
gratitude.
So
but
we can tell them you have to celebrate this holiday.
no, because it's on a Thursday.
It's on a Thursday.
But I was
Or
thinking this
so-
morning about gratitude, so maybe that's because I was just linking these two up. But
Okay.
we'll make it known
It will be.
throughout the
It
week.
will become known.
It
It
will
will
be-
emerge.
It
And
will be a surprise. Don't be
it
fearful.
was like we started with klesha, and it ended up being fear and Abhinivesha, which of course is klesha. So
Oh, nice. So Imka, say hi to the study group. The study group. She's going to share the satsang with the study group.
oh, good. Hi, study group.
Hello.
Now you see now they
And
have.
a little baby.
And they have to go through the whole thing just to get to the end, to get to hear where we say, hello, study group.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Maribel.
Yeah,
You're
thank
most
you.
welcome, and thank you for engaging and playing and all that. So, all right, I guess we should stop there. See, I have trouble stopping too because I enjoy this with you, and so it's like we could just keep going. But
It
no.
comes, it stays, and
It comes, it
all
stays,
has
and
to
it
go
goes.
If it's
This
not
is
the
what
self.
this is what happens in our world. It comes, it is for a while, and it goes away.
Yeah. And what remains is ever free.
Thanks for playing,
Bye,
man.
Mayor. I will.
Haha. Okay, so
There you go.
have wonderful meditations and find what you're looking for. Remember, what we're looking for is beyond the kleshas, and the kleshas are natural and normal. But wouldn't it be nice to have just a little bit of time every day where you are free from kleshas, free from Abhinivesha, free from fear, free from this, free from this, free from even I, and free from the forms of avidya. And that can be found in the silence at the end. Nellie knows my line.
Yeah.
It can be found in the silence at the end of an Om. And that can be called Sat, or truth, or reality. Hence, Om Tat Sat. Yeah, we got an Om up there from Aranka. We got an Om, and now we got...
Love you too.
Gopesh, hi Gopesh. I didn't see Gopesh sneak in. Love you guys too. Yeah, you guys are fun. All of you are
All of
fun. And we talk a lot about how much we enjoy when you come together with us and we can hang out like this. Because most everybody in here we know, as you know, we know you personally. And so we care for you and you care for us, and so it's fun. And so find the silence after the Om, and that's called Sat. Therefore, Om Tat Sat. Okay? Bye-bye. Say bye-bye, Ma.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Rojo says bye. Jeff says bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Dewey Dewey. That's for the Dutchies. For those who don't know, that's for the Dutchies, Dewey Dewey.
Dewey, Dewey.
Anyway, bye-bye again.